You are now listening to Diamond in the Desert podcast, hosted by content creator Roshocker and former Dbacks pitcher Trevor McKenna.
Welcome everyone to Diamond in the Desert podcast episode 2. We are your host Roshocker with former Diamondbacks pitcher Trevor McKenna. How are we feeling for episode 2?
Feeling good, Roshocker. We got some good news on deck, man. Can't wait to talk about it. Let's do it.
I can't wait. We are a week into spring training and we are 29 days away from opening day. Shout out to number 29 on the Diamondbacks, Merrill Kelly, pitcher, who was a big part of their postseason run last year. Make sure to download the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever else you listen to a podcast on. We're going to jump into our Dbacks Spotlight. And Trevor, I hear you have a special spotlight that you want to talk about.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to my manager of the Hillsboro Hops, Sean Roof. He actually texted me before the show today and said he listened to the podcast, our first episode, loved it, and he can't wait to listen to us for the rest of the season and through the summer for the rest of the team. Got a cool story about Mr. Roof. He made a slogan called Bring the E in 2018 when we were on the Hillsboro Hops. It's about bring the energy. And the Hillsboro Hops created this awesome hype video for the postseason and everything. That man is full of energy. He would get us rowdy in the locker room. We were always ready to go. Good man.
Yo, that's someone that we need to have on. I love to be around someone that's full of energy. That'll get me fired up. I'm full of energy too. Yo, get me on a softball field and go crazy like, ah.
Oh, yeah. He always loved when I would scream, let's go off the mound. He was always pumped up.
Let's go. Sean Roof, we definitely need to have you on. Shout out to manager Sean Roof. And we got a couple of other players that we want to spotlight. Some guys that just got signed to minor league deals that could potentially make an impact on the Diamondbacks. First guy, outfitter Kyle Garlick. What do you have for him?
Now, Kyle Garlick is going to be a perfect fit. When Jock Peterson is out against those lefties, I think he's going to be a perfect fit. 14 home runs and 10 doubles and 208 plate appearances against lefties. I think it's a perfect fit. Maybe probably a mid-season call-up for sure.
And I love that the D-backs are really trying to deepen their roster, bringing in guys, even if there's some minor league deals that can really, benefit the roster if there's injuries or anything like that. They also signed Albert Almora, who is an outfitter as well. What do you have about him?
Yeah, another solid guy against lefties. I'm kind of sensing a trend here for the Diamondbacks. I think we're kind of got that crystal ball out for the future, right? Just another guy, again, that can fill in the spot. Again, minor league deal, but again, I think another midseason call-up against those lefties.
And they said he can play all three outfielding position spots. Just great with the glove. He might not be, too good with his bat, but, you get somebody out there that can play defense that you can just plug in anywhere where someone needs a rest or, again, injuries, then, that's your guy. So I really love what the Diamondbacks have been doing with their roster. Again, just little pieces here and there to really solidify that team. And then, we kind of talked a little bit about Eduardo Rodriguez on episode 1. We're going to talk a little bit about him later on because he did pitch. But you have a fun story to share with everybody.
Yeah, Eduardo Rodriguez, when we were talking about in the first episode, it hit me. I remember in 2021, that World Series when he gave up that home run against Yasiel Puig. He threw his glove down on the mound. It was like this big news, and everybody was asking him about it. Why'd you do it? He's like, well, obviously I was frustrated. I just gave up a home run to Yasiel Puig, and he just laughed it off. But if you guys get a shot, go check out that video. It's great. You have the picture of Yasiel Puig finishing his swing, and then Eduardo Rodriguez is slamming his glove down. Gotta love it.
Now, we didn't talk about this, but, you being a former pitcher, did you ever react a certain way when you gave up a home run?
Well, that's what's kind of crazy, man. And that's kind of probably my craziest stat in my professional career. I never gave up a home run. I will always say that to people, which is kind of insane.
Hey!
Definitely. But I was super energetic guy on the mound. And if I got a big strikeout for the team, that other team knew it. I was either screaming, let's go, or just screaming my face off. Always had my energy on my shoulder, man.
I love it. I love it. I'm gonna have some random questions throughout the year for you about your pitcher career because I just love hearing different stories, from someone who's been there. So thank you for that. And to never give up a home run, that's insane.
I'm sure I had a few close calls, but I guess that I can always say no home runs, which is a plus.
Nice, nice. And everyone out there, again, make sure to download the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever else you listen to podcasts on. We're a week into spring training. The last time we talked, there was a couple of games that have been played, and we're going to go ahead and jump into that. Sunday on the 25th, we had the Diamondbacks against the White Sox. Dbacks won 5-0, but most importantly, we had a huge day for Ketel Marte. 2 hits and 2 at-bats. All the pitchers in that game were dominant. They took a no-hitter to the 9th inning, and I did hear in the 8th inning, it was like an error that ended up being a hit. But to take a no-hitter, I don't care if it's spring ball. I don't care at what level. That is amazing. What did you think about the performance out there?
It was super impressive. They were just really filling up the zone. I think that was an error. That's just me. But I was watching the game. I was like, come on, give us the no-hitter, right?
Yes.
But it was just perfect performance by the Diamondbacks all the way around. I mean, Ketel Marte is getting started right where he left off in the postseason, getting a hit, I feel like, every single day, right? And then our pitchers are just, again, being dominant and filling up the zone, not allowing a lot of walks and just doing their thing. Love it. Love to see it.
And what's important about it is, we have that big battle for the 5th spot in a rotation. So, and we had a couple of pitchers in that game that were really trying to, fight for that spot. One guy that we did mention a little bit in episode 1 was Slade Cecconi. He had 2 innings of no earned runs, 4 strikeouts, and he was just had great location all day with his curveball and changeup. What did you like from him?
Yeah, he was just super dominant. Again, like you mentioned, great location on the off speed, which is so important in establishing your fastball, right? Definitely see him as that 5th starter, or potentially a long relief guy that's going to come in and just throw strikes and get outs. But also he could strike some guys out and surprise people.
And that's what we like to see. We also had a couple of pitchers, Humberto Castellanos and Luke Albright, who each tossed 2 scoreless frames. And, again, we talked about Ketel Marte's hot start. He's batting .714 in spring so far, just on fire. And that's one thing you really like to see from, a guy that you're going to be dependent on throughout the whole year.
Definitely. And I just feel like he didn't get the memo that in baseball, you're supposed to fail a lot, because it doesn't seem like he likes to fail. You're supposed to fail 7 out of 10 times, and he's just not doing it. I'm sure he's smiling from edge to edge, man. He's super ecstatic. I mean, he's batting, like you said, over 700. That's ridiculous. That's little league numbers. Love to see it.
I love it. I love it. And then one other guy I want to highlight is Blaze Alexander. He started a double steal, and they ended up scoring a run on that. Also had a beautiful leaping catch to Rob Lenin Sosa of a hit. He's someone that's his name's been floating around in spring training so far.
Yeah, man, I actually played with him as well with the Hillsboro Hops. I saw it from day one. Just a super, super athletic guy. Whether it's in the weight room, whether it's on the baseball field, or if he wants to go play flag football, he's going to do well either way, right? He's just a super athletic guy, and really will surprise you with what he can do, whether it's at the plate or on the field.
All right, and then Monday, we had the Dbacks versus the Athletics. It was a really high-scoring game. A lot of home runs hit. We had home runs by Jordan Lawler, who, again, a lot of hype around him, and Christian Robinson, who you have a little intel about.
Yeah, played with Christian in 2018 and 2019. When I was playing with him, he was actually the #1 prospect in the organization. And funny story, in 2019, I'll never forget this. I'm sitting in the bullpen, and he just hits a mammoth shot, 500 feet. 107 off the bat, and the whole stadium, as the ball made contact with the bat and that sound, the whole stadium went silent. It was like a cannon going off. A super, super muscular guy, super athletic. He's fast, he's strong. And I think, he's on the lower spectrum of, the top prospects in the Diamondbacks organization now, but I expect him to go right back up again. Really, really talented guy.
Now, let's get the crystal ball out here. where can you or when can you see him make an impact on the actual Diamondbacks roster?
Great question. I expect Diamondbacks to be right back into the postseason hunt. So I can probably say, you never know what happens during the season. Injuries can happen. You can come up quicker than we think, but maybe a mid-season, late season, or maybe like a postseason pickup where pitchers haven't seen him very much, and he can just explode on the scene and make a huge impact.
Love it, love it, love it. And Jordan Lawler, we talked a little bit about last episode. He's someone that, we're keeping an eye on. He got to jump into the rotation last year towards, August, September, got to be around that postseason run. So getting that experience for someone that's young, I can't wait to see if he can make the roster and see what type of position he ends up playing with the team. That outfield, though, for the Diamondbacks is just so crowded.
Mhm. Yeah, and there's some speedsters out there, man. It's probably the most competitive outfield in Major League Baseball. I mean, if you hit a ball, especially in Arizona, if you hit a ball in the air and it's not over the fence, it's probably being caught.
Exactly, exactly. Now, Tuesday, we had, again, spring training, but it was a rematch of the World Series, the Rangers against the Diamondbacks. And it's funny, I heard a fun little story. It was from Blaze Alexander. He went up to manager Terry before the game, and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna give it my all today. I know what this game is." And Terry thought about it. He's all like, "What do you mean? We're playing the Rangers." And he was like,
Mhm.
"Oh." And there was a story about I think he had ate ice cream to kind of, get him over the World Series loss, and he ended up getting a bunch of ice cream shipped into his house and stuff from fans and everything. So it kind of, it brought that we're spring training, but we're still competing out here. Now the result, the Rangers did win 10-3. So it didn't really go too much in our favor, but it's just still fun to see that spring training or not, these guys are really giving it their all.
Yeah, honestly, I don't falter Blaze Alexander at all. I mean, I remember in my professional years when we were playing the Eugene Emeralds, we were huge competition against them. We didn't like them; they didn't like us. So you always felt like you were on edge when you were playing that team, and good reason. Rangers beat us in the World Series. I would be foaming at the mouth to play them again, right? And being super excited, wanting to dominate them. We didn't get it this time, but when it's regular season time, we're going to get them. I'm not worried about it.
Exactly. And I just want to ask you this question. Was there ever a loss in your career that just like ate you up like that night? Like it was just like, oh my goodness, it was so tough.
Yeah, I would say in 2018, when we lost in the playoffs and we had to go home. I don't know if you know this. So in 2018, the Hillsborough Hops had the second best winning percentage of all professional baseball behind the Boston Red Sox. Like
No
we were
way.
unbeatable. We were unbelievable. So just being able to lose in the postseason, not be able to continue on and get that championship that was a long plane ride back home. It was a long plane ride.
Gotcha. I mean, I somewhat believe it because we're seeing a lot of the fruit from that team on this Diamondbacks team that are just really talented.
Mhm.
I got a fun story myself. Not baseball, but I did coach middle school basketball, and this was probably the worst loss that I ever took. And I played sports all throughout my life, but to actually coach, we went undefeated throughout the whole season. We played, and it was funny. They did the brackets weird, but we ended up playing the second seed in the semifinals. And we took care of them. So we went to the finals confident, like, hey, we got the title in our hands, and we was losing by 2 with a minute left. We ended up tying a game, and then my sister was on the team. She was fouled with no time left. All she had to do was sink one free throw, and she missed both of them. It was just too much for her. We go into overtime, and we end up losing the game. And I went to my car, and I know it was just middle school basketball. It hurt. So I can
Mhm.
only imagine getting to the top of the top level in a World Series. And, that can be really, really tough.
No, definitely. And what I always love to see is the guys, after they lose a big game, they will sit in that dugout and watch that team celebrate. So it resonates with them. It eats them alive until they come back for spring training and they're ready to go. It's another beast that hits them because they got to watch that other team celebrate. I love seeing guys do that.
And one guy that has been ready to go, and we've already talked about him earlier, is Ketel Marte. In this game against the Rangers, he hit a blast. 100 miles per hour off the bat. I think it went 410 feet. And it was a triple. It was a triple. They said that it would have been a home run in 28 of the 30 ballparks. Crazy. Diamondbacks is one that it would not have left the park because if you know center field, it's just, that long shot. The yellow home run line goes up pretty high. But he hit a shot. Did you see the shot that he hit?
That was like, Christian Robinson. It was like that same type of sound, man. It's like a cannon going off, and everybody all the air gets sucked out of the stadium. Everybody goes, they get that crazy feeling to see where the ball ends up. Yeah, it was a monster shot.
Yo, he's looking really, really good. And then, we talked about Erod, Eduardo Rodriguez. He pitched an inning, gave up 4 earned runs, did have 2 strikeouts, and you can talk more about this. You get some starting pitchers who are already solidified in their role, and they might be trying to test out their mechanics and try out different things. So for the fans, that might look at the box score and be like, yo, we brought him in, he did this. Give us some insight on how, different roles can play as you go into spring training between someone that might be competing for a 5th spot and somebody that might already have a spot in the rotation.
For sure. When you're competing for a spot, you're putting your best out there every single day to try to get that spot, right? Guy like Eduardo Rodriguez, we know he's going to be in the starting rotation. We obviously traded for him. We wanted to get him, right? We want to pick him up. So when we're looking at guys like that, they could even be told by their pitching coach, hey, we really need to work on the curveball today. We really need to work on the slider. We need to work on an inside fastball or work on our changeup more. They might throw that pitch 80% of the time. They really could care less about the results. They just really want to get the feel of that baseball coming off their fingers and figure out when it comes off their fingers, what feels right, to get that feeling all over again. And to really work on pitches, it's almost like a live at bat for them. They're throwing a bullpen against real hitters and they're trying to test their pitches. More for feeling, but also to see how batters react, for sure.
And the Dbacks brass just say they loved his velocity coming into the game. And he even said that, hey, I probably could work on positioning my pitches a little better, but I really felt good out there. And, that's the biggest thing when you're making your first start, of the year. Another guy that did pretty well, Eugenio Suarez. He went 2 for 2 with a double and single. What did you think about him?
Looked really solid. Was really, patient at the plate and wasn't trying to do too much. Again, probably a guy that's just trying to work, get the feel, not trying to overswing. Again, he's getting double and single. He's just trying to get back into that routine.
And a couple of guys that you talked about on the last podcast, Luis Frias and Andrew Sawfrank. Luis pitched an inning, got a strikeout. Sawfrank pitched an inning, got 2 strikeouts. They both gave up 0 runs. What'd you like from their performances?
Yeah, they just filled up the zone, just looked dominant. Big guys on the mound coming downhill hard. And it's so funny going back to Sean Roop, that shout out. He was just texting me earlier today. He goes, you reminded me how stacked our team was in 2018 and 2019. We had the most unbelievable minor league team, and just seems like all these guys that are making impact in the major leagues now are on that team. I feel blessed that I was able to play with them and have that relationship,
And as a manager, that must be so cool just to see players that you used to manage now at the top level and performing really, really well. And then, for you to be a teammate of those and be able to see that must be awesome.
Yeah, man. It's like watching a really good friend succeed in life. And that's the most beautiful thing to watch, man. You see these kids' dreams come true. You keep tabs with them. You have conversations, and you feel really happy for them, and see that success at the toppest, best level that you could possibly be at.
So true, so true. And then today we had the Diamondbacks against the Guardians. The Diamondbacks were actually trailing in this game and came back to win. What were some of the highlights from this game that you saw?
Man, Gurriel, oof, he hit an absolute tank today.
Woo!
One of those that, again, sucked the air out of the stadium. Everybody was waiting to see where this ball landed. Absolute bomb. And then Tommy Henry, again, stud. Hillsborough Hops, once again. Solid 3 innings of no-hit baseball. Just looked, I mean, he wasn't unhittable, and he looked unhittable for sure.
Yeah, and that's good. And, great signs so far from this team early on. This is the reason why that we saw them be successful last year, and it's already good that they come into spring training. You can tell that they took the offseason seriously, and we're going to have a really, really good roster 29 days from now on opening day. To go into later in the week on Thursday, the Diamondbacks will be facing the Giants. And on Friday, the Diamondbacks will be facing the Cincinnati Reds. Now, Diamondbacks Mailbag, do we have a letter in the bag today?
We got one, and it's a pretty solid question. I love it. From Lauren, what do you foresee as the biggest challenge for the Diamondbacks this year? I'll let you take first stab.
Ooh, the biggest challenge for the Diamondbacks this year. This is tough. This is a really good question. I think the biggest challenge, and kind of what we talked about all year, is they've brought in so many guys. The biggest challenge to me is trying to figure out who's going to play where. You have, your solidified starters already, but then you have a lot of guys that you signed to 1-year deals that are trying to, make a spot. Jock Peterson, I'm pretty sure you being a competitor, yeah, you're going to hit against righties, but you want to hit against lefties too. You want to be in a lineup as much as possible. So I think trying to balance all of that, trying to, shore up your rotation, that's going to be the biggest challenge in my opinion. What about you?
I would say the biggest challenge is to prove to the state of Arizona and to the rest of the country that last year was not a fluke. That, hey, we're here to play and we're going to make the postseason again. And we're going to prove that, number one, last year was not a fluke. And we are one of the top teams in the MLB. And we're going to make sure we prove that night in and night out. I think that's the biggest challenge. You have a little bit of chip on your shoulder, but I think they're ready for the challenge.
You know what? I think so as well. And, you look at the national media, for an example, and everyone, highlights our rival, the Dodgers. Spend $1 billion. Ohtani is getting, he hit a home run in his first, spring training. So that's going to be, we should be the targets for actually making the World Series. And I think the Diamondbacks really thrive off that. It's like, okay, that's all right. They don't have to talk about us. We're going to show everyone out there who is the better team in the National League West.
Definitely, man. I'm excited to watch it. Just excited to see them grind. And I know it's spring training right now, but I can't wait for opening day. It can't come sooner.
I can't wait as well. Again, 29 more days. And that is episode 2 of the Diamond in the Desert podcast. Remember to download the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever else you may find a podcast on. I am, again, your host, Roshocker, with Trevor McKenna. Trevor, what do you got for the people?
Man, just keep watching Dbacks baseball, and let's crush it this year. 2024 is the year. Let's get it.
Let's get it. Have a great one, everyone. And until then, until episode 3, we will see you later.
Thank you for listening to Diamond in the Desert podcast.